喂。Hi, Daryl. Oh, sorry. I'll echo to just.
Hello there, how are you going?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad. You had some feedback bouncing back and forth there, but it's okay now.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm Cecilia. I will be your co-host and translator today.
No problem.
And I will do a very short introduction to Go Markets before you start. And so after you finish, we can go straight to the Q&A.
Yep, that's no problems at all. It'll probably be around your time, 8:30 thereabouts, when we do that. So the last 30 minutes will be questions.
Yeah.
It could be a bit more, but as develops. Now let's play around with some screens just to make sure that we've got the changeovers done properly. Can you give me screen control, please?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Show my screen. Yes. Okay, so we've got that. Now, can you see my screen there at the moment?
Yeah, I can see your screen, yes.
Okay, now, can you see this screen as well?
Yes, I can.
Good, excellent. That means that everything's working pretty much the way it ought to.
Yeah.
I'll just put that onto a full screen. Okay, so that's got full screen for you there.
Yeah, it's full screen now.
Okay, right here. We can toss it back to you if you wish, so that we've got that procedure done smoothly.
Okay. I will change presenter to myself for now. Yeah. Later, I will
Okay.
get that back to you.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
So how long have you been with Go Markets?
Not very long. I did financial related jobs in Shanghai, in China, before for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, but I did my university
here. Broker or fund manager?
Fund manager.
So where is your hometown?
Shanghai.
It is Shanghai. Mm-hmm. Well, just because you're working in Shanghai doesn't always mean that your hometown is Shanghai.
Yeah. but yeah. Let me share my screen. How's your day? Busy?
Yes. Very busy. I just finished writing some articles for China Daily and for CGTN. China Daily article should be out just tomorrow or Monday issue. CGTN over the weekend.
What's the recent very hot topic in China right now, you think?
Sorry, Shama?
What's the topic that people discuss a lot or interesting in China for now?
The particular topic I was talking about in this instance was Indo-Pacific Economic Forum, which is, I'm not too sure it's popular, but it's something that the China Daily wanted me to talk about.
Okay.
My article with South China Morning Post earlier this week was about the Shangri-La dialogue in Singapore.
Yeah.
Yeah, so not about financial markets.
So we got 8 minutes left. We are both here very early.
This is true, but it is good to be early to set up and make sure that everything is working smoothly. And besides, it gives you an opportunity to get accustomed to my accent.
Yeah.
So you've been in Australia for 3 years?
I just come back to Melbourne last October, but before that, I did my bachelor and master here for 6 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was bachelor and master in finance?
Yeah, all in finance in Melbourne Uni.
So you were in Shanghai for lockdown?
No. At that time, I was in Hangzhou, another part of Shanghai. But my parents is in Shanghai. They do got the lockdown.
Hangzhou and Sihu, Westlake.
Yeah. Have you been to Hangzhou?
我去过.
Wow.
Dragon's Well tea. Yeah. How come?
Have you been to Shanghai as well?
I have been to many places in China. Shanghai, Beijing, Guangzhou. I mean, everyone's been there, but Dunhuang, well, so many places.
Shanghai, 东方明珠.
No, I'm just gone blank for a moment. I'm not too sure exactly why. So in North China through Dalian, Qingdao, Ruzhou. Out in the west, I said Dunhuang, Rimouchi, Kucha. On the other side, Nanning, Sichuan Banar. So several places.
Wow, sounds you've been everywhere in China, even more places than me.
There are still places I want to go. I have not been to Harbin. To go to Harbin for Ice Festival. And also Name Mongolia.
Mongolia.
So Xinjiang and Gansu are interesting. Yunnan is interesting. Many different places.
Yeah. So you must try different food, right?
Oh, many different foods. Culture. But unfortunately, it has been 3 years since I have been back to China. I left, last time I was in China was December 2019, just before.
That's right before the lockdown.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Last minute, people start to come in.
Okay.
Okay, I guess I will start do the introduction.
Okay. While you've got your camera turned on, you will appear every time you speak.
Okay. My camera, can you see me?
I can see you.
All right. Yeah. Oh. 好的，那么各位好，那么今天的话也是我们每个月一次的独家大师堂，那么我是 Cecilia 陈，我将在今天为大家进行这个大师堂的翻译。那么最前面的呢，还是请大家来仔细的阅读一下我们的免责声明。那么我们 GoMarkets 分析师、GoMarkets Security 分析师或者外部讲师的文章、视频和网络研讨会，都基于独立分析或者个人的经验所表达的观点。那么意见风格仅代表个人，并不代表 GoMarkets Limited 和 GoMarkets Limited 的立场和观点。那么课程呢是一般性建议，并没有考虑到您的个人目标、财务状况和需求。因此呢，如果说您决定是否申请差价合约 CFD 和实体股票交易账户的时候呢，请务必查看相关的股票交易法律文件。那么我们 GoMarkets 的澳洲牌照号码呢是254963受到 AFS 的金融监管。那么我们 GoMarkets 呢简单介绍一下，主要呢是一个账户，那么可以为大家提供交易全球100种差价合约金融产品的机会。主要呢就包括比如说像外汇澳元，那么黄金白银，还有全球的股指，比如说像纳斯达克还有大宗商品石油，然后股票的 CFD 澳股和美股都有。那么呢都可以进行双向交易，也就是可以看涨也可以去做空。那么我们 GoMarkets 呢，大家想必也非常熟悉了，我们是澳大利亚非常老牌的知名券商了。这一家西人的公司，04年呢就取得了澳大利亚金融服务执照，那么编号呢是254963受到监管。那么我们秉持着服务当地华人的初衷呢，也是在15年就成立了 GoMarkets 的中文服务部门。那么目前呢，我们在墨尔本以及悉尼都设置有我们中文的服务部门，可以更好的为大家进行这个交易上的这个咨询。那么我们所有的团队成员呢，也是均持有 R146相关的金融从业资格证书。那么如果您加入我们 GoMarkets 成为我们的客户呢，您将会得到每天最及时的市场更新，通过短信中文短视频以及每日中文邮件的方式。那么第二个呢，我们也将为您提供独家由中文分析的报告这些报告呢会覆盖到股票外汇、黄金以及原油。那么第三个呢，就是我们其实每周二都会有一个线上的直播课程。那么有一些小白课程，也有一些如果您已经有一定的操作经验的一些深度课程，那还有包括像我们今天的这个大师课。那么此外呢，您也会有我们的专属中文客户经理为您提供全程1对1的指导避免了您在可能其他一些交易平台在英文环境下面会遇到的一些障碍。那么我们今天呢，主要是邀请了其实非常知名的这个戴若布比他是澳大利亚的这个技术分析大师其实在中国也非常的有名然后的话他会为我们带来2023年下半年投资机会和交易技巧的这样的一个分享那么最后呢，也跟大家说一下，因为今天可能会有很多新的朋友，那如果您是使用电脑端来参加我们的会议呢，在会后我们会有一个 Q&A 的问答过程，那么您可以再看一下我图片上的这个指南就是在您的右边会有一个红色箭头，您将它点开以后呢，在我们这个左边你就可以去输入问题当我们看到以后会为您翻译给我们的讲师，由他为您进行解答。那么同样的，如果说您是在手机端的话呢那就是在您的手机端上点这个问号，然后的话就会出现右边的这个界面点击这里向工作人员去咨询就可以输入问题了。那么如果说大家希望成为我们的客户呢，请不要忘记关注我们的这个墨尔本小助手以及悉尼小助手，大家可以根据自己的这个区域来选择如果您现在来不及扫码的话呢也可以到时候搜索 GoMarkets 联系我们中文服务部门。OK， 那我们现在就把这个时间交给我们今天的讲师顾比。
Okay, can you throw the screen to me, please?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, can you confirm you can see my full screen?
Yeah, I can see.
And you can hear as well?
Yes.
Excellent. 女士们、先生们、朋友们，晚上好。Tonight, I've been asked to talk about the debt ceiling crisis, CPI issues, and how these will be a potential risk to our economy.
那么今天呢，护比会跟大家分享的是美国的债务危机、消费物价指数的问题、通胀问题，以及这些会对我们的经济造成怎样的潜在风险以及影响。
So how will the RBA respond in the future? And more importantly, what's the influence on our investment strategies? What can we do to survive in these conditions?
那么未来呢，我们澳联储将会如何面对物价通胀啊？更重要的是呢，这个加息与否啊，以及通胀的问题对我们的投资策略有何影响？我们投资者应该怎样去做，才能在这样的市场下啊赢得先机？
And then secondly, of course, what kind of stocks or commodities or foreign currencies will benefit from the Hiroshima summit, the G7 summit in 2023? How can we trade this in the next 3 or 4 months?
当然还有了，就是说有哪一些股票以及商品以及外汇板块将会从前面广岛的G7国峰会当中受益。那么未来2到3个月，我们应该如何去交易？
And then my objective, when we have covered this, is to look at some major markets and also have time for questions.
那么我们今天主要呢，就是会看一些主要市场的这个情况，然后呢，也会给大家留一些时间进行提问。
Oops. That's better. But this is my perspective on how I am trading in this environment. I'm going to give you some things to think about.
那么现在展示的这张图片呢，就是说顾比会在这种环境下进行交易的看法，然后呢，给大家一点时间去遐想一下这个图片的意义啊。
And if you're confused about the current market, you don't know whether it's you have to prepare for rain or for sunshine, then you're not alone.
那如果说现在投资者们在这个市场下面感到有点迷茫，不知道后面是好的市场还是一个乌云漫步的市场，那大家都是这样啊，不用感到孤单。
I'm not sure that I can give you a very clear outlook, and that's a characteristic of this market condition.
可能今天我们不会给大家一个非常明确的前景，我们说一定熊市或者一定牛市，那是因为这就是现在市场的一个特征。
So we must be prepared for both rain and for sunshine.
所以说，不管是在市场顺行还是逆行的情况下面，我们都有办法去做好准备。
Now, I think Cecilia has covered the general warning that we're given, but just to remind you again, what I'm talking about tonight is market analysis and outlook, not stock recommendations.
好，那么前面也跟大家读过免责声明，这边顾比再提醒大家，今天我们所有讨论的内容都是一般性的公开建议市场分析和前景，而非实质的产品推荐。
So rain or sunshine, it starts with our understanding of the debt ceiling.
所以说是下雨还是阳光，市场好与不好，都开始于我们对债务上限的理解。
Of course, the debt ceiling is over and done with. Do we need to worry about it?
当然了，其实债务上限到现在这个问题它已经解决了，我们也不需要再担心。
When we prepared this presentation, the nuclear option was still on the table, and we can't ignore it.
当我们在准备这个演讲稿的时候，定下这个话题的时候呢，其实当时就是这个债务危机像一个原子炸弹一样，一直横在这个市场上。
Now, the nuclear option is where the US defaults on its debt.
那这个核爆炸一样的这个潜在的危机啊，前期就是美国可能违约。
It didn't happen this time, but because of the argument about all of this, we came closer to it than we ever have in the past.
这次虽然美国没有发生真正的债务违约，最后谈妥了，但是呢，这引发的一些争论啊，就代表我们其实比任何时候都接近这件事情，那未来也有可能会有这样的风险。
The increased risk of this happening again is what is worrying markets at the moment. The risk premium attached to the United States is increasing. And one of the impacts of that is interest rates will continue to rise.
那么像债务危机引发的风险呢，是市场所担心的。那么就是说市场会有一个风险的溢价。那么此外呢，就是说另外一个依附于美国现在正在使得大家越发担忧的，就是利率将继续上升。
Of course, the debt trap is continued debt that's fueled by spending that relies on foreign investors lending money to the United States.
当然了，债务陷阱呢，就是说这个其实它就是一个因为美国持续的发债，然后呢一直依赖外国的投资者向美国贷款而引发的，这就是美国债券危机。
So we've just come from a situation where the United States moved very close to saying we're not going to pay you back.
所以呢，我们刚刚走出的这个危机就是说，走出的一个危机是什么呢？就是说，美国说了，我不还你钱的啊。
And that worries foreign investors.
但是呢，虽然是这样，但是投资者们还是对，那你美国会不会下次你不还我钱了有担忧。
It speeds up the process towards de-dollarization of the global economy.
这个也是加速了全球去美元化的这样一个进程。
People are increasingly worried about the impact of sanctions, of confiscation of foreign reserves. All of these make foreign lenders more cautious about how they will finance American debt and how much they will charge to do it.
那人们与之而来就会越来越担心美国制裁的问题，还有就是外汇储备的没收外汇储备的问题，然后还有呢就是说当国外借钱给美国的时候，那他也会想一想会不会有这个违约风险，更加谨慎还有的话以及他们将为美国的这个债务融资，他们打算付多少钱去买这个美国的债，都会引发这样的一些思考。
And that's shaking up the global trade settlement system. And that impacts on the way Australia exports and how it gets paid for those exports.
那么这个事情也是撼动了全球贸易结算的体系呢，也会影响澳大利亚出口的方式，以及呢，澳大利亚因为出口，那它要收到外汇的钱，对不对？那澳大利亚也会开始重新思考这些事情。
The important thing is that the debt trap continues, and part of what feeds into it is the uncapped increase in military expenditure by the United States.
而且更重要的一点是，就是前面也说到这个制裁的问题呢，就是说，美债的问题其实还是在继续。为什么呢？因为美国还是在无上限的去支出美国军费方面的开支，国防开支。
So who cares?
那到底谁最在乎这个事情呢？
It's in the United States. We shouldn't worry about it too much.
在美国的话，我们可能也不用太担心这个问题，因为你是借钱的嘛。
But in fact, the pressure on United States interest rates continues to be strong.
但是呢，其实这个美国这个利率的这个加息这个事情它带来的压力其实是很大的。
Irrespective of the way that the United States Federal Reserve wants to use interest rates to manage the economy, it has other impacts that we need to be aware of.
不管美联储最终采取以何种方式来用这个利率来调节经济啊，它都会带来我们需要注意的很多的跟投资相关的影响。
So the Fed may be moving interest rates up to help manage the economy. That's the first thing, a domestic purpose.
那当然了，美联储呢，就是可能会提高利率来帮助这个经济，就是抵御通胀那么这个是他们美国内他们最关注的第一目标嘛。
But foreign investors will not lend money to the United States. They will not buy US treasuries unless there's an increase in the return, an increase in the dividend, the interest rate that's paid by US treasuries.
但是当然了，就国外的投资者他也不傻嘛，他也不会无穷无尽的向美国借钱，他们不会买美债，除非就是说你告诉我你现在给我的这个买美债的回报增加就是你借钱的这个利息增加。
And those interest rate changes flow through the global economy, including Australia.
那么美国加息的这个事情，就像图片上的这个倒香槟的杯子一样美国在上面加息，但是这个事情它从上往下流，就会流到全球的各个经济，也影响我们澳大利亚的经济。
为什么？ Because Australian banks, for instance, borrow US dollars to fund the Australian housing market. And if they have to pay more to borrow US funds to do that, then that interest rate flows through over and above any interest rate rise from the Australian Reserve Bank.
那么这是因为呢，澳大利亚的银行也是买美债嘛，就是相当于拿入美元然后呢为澳大利亚的房地产市场是提供资金如果说澳大利亚这些银行他们要必须支付更多的费用来介入美国资金的话，那么这个利率就会超过澳大利亚储备银行的任何的加息。
And as we will see later, that feeds through to the Australian dollar in relation to the US dollar, and that impacts our ability to deliver export earnings, which of course underpin economic prosperity in Australia.
那这个事情美国加息的这个事情就会影响什么呢？影响澳元对美元，那么影响澳大利亚这个出口收到这个钱的这个能力嘛因为美元澳元他们会有这个升值贬值的这个关系，还有呢就是说就会影响到澳大利亚的经济繁荣与否。
But enough of the United States. They have their own problems that are a little different to the problems that we have.
那么当然了，也要跟大家说，就是美国的话，他们经济上也有他们自己的问题，跟我们遇到的问题不一样。
The key drivers that we need to be concerned with are our rate of inflation, the CPI, and the action taken by the Reserve Bank to control inflation.
那么我们在澳大利亚需要关注的呢，主要就是我们澳大利亚的通胀，还有澳联储 RBA 他们所做的跟加息相关的一系列的决策。
Now, the Reserve Bank believes that we are experiencing the same type of inflation that we saw in the late 1970s, early 1980s.
那么 RBA 认为我们现在在经历这个通胀是跟当时1970年代末、1980年代初一样的这种类型的通货膨胀。
They believe that it is demand-driven inflation.
他们认为呢，这是一个由需求驱动的通胀。
So the Reserve Bank governor believes that you and I have too much money.
所以澳联储的央行行长认为我们大家手上钱太多了。
Now, if I was talking to you face to face, I'd ask you to indicate if you believe that you had too much money.
如果说顾比现在跟大家是面对面的话，他就会问大家一个问题大家觉得是不是大家手上钱太多了呢？
But of course, every indicator, every market report, every financial report that comes out of the supermarkets shows that we do not have excess money.
但是每一个相关的经济指标还有一些经济报告，还有一些比如说澳洲当地大型超市的这些财报，都显示出的一件事情是，大家手上没有多余的钱。
But Lowe believes, the Reserve Bank believes, that this is old-style inflation driven by excess money in the economy.
但是澳联储的这个 Philip Lowe 还是认为这个是跟之前类型一样的那种需求驱动的通胀，就是手上钱太多了。
They try to tell us that wage increases is what's driving inflation.
澳联储告诉我们的这个信息呢，是因为工资增长的太多了，才推动了通货膨胀。
But the reality is that inflation started long before wages began to creep up, and the amount of increase in wages is very small.
但是事实是什么呢？通胀早在工资上涨之前就已经开始了，而且当时工资的涨幅是很小的。
What we're looking at is not demand-driven inflation, which is controlled by interest rates, but by supply-side-driven inflation.
实质上呢，顾比认为我们所面对的这个物价通胀问题并不是说由需求驱动的，而是由供应侧驱动的。
Because COVID caused disruptions in international supply lines, it meant that goods that were coming from China were substituted or replaced with more expensive goods coming from America or Australia or elsewhere.
实质上，这个通货膨胀的本质原因呢，就是因为疫情以后它对全球的供应链造成了一定的这个中断。然后呢，之前从中国进口的这些货品呢，就被其他国家进口过来的货品所取代了。而这些从其他国家而非中国进来的商品呢，是更贵的。
The difference is important between demand-driven inflation and supply-side inflation because the methods that you use to control it are different.
需求驱动型的通货膨胀和供给侧通货膨胀之间的区别是很重要的，请大家注意，因为这代表了控制他们的方法是不一样的。
So the consequences for company performance are also very different.
所以说，这个对一些企业的这个业绩的影响也是大不相同。
Governor Lowe also talks about the need to increase productivity if there's any wages increase.
当然，澳联储的 Philip Lowe 他也强调过，就是应对这个工资上涨的问题，我们应该把工作效率也提升上来。
He means do more with less money for the same hours.
那么这个意思就是说，让大家用在相同的时间里用一样的钱，你要做更多的事，提升效率。
There was a time when it was true to say that Australian workers were very lazy.
确实有这么一段时间就是说，顾比说，可能澳大利亚的工人非常懒惰。
But I don't think that's true anymore.
但是现在事情不是这样的哦。
So what's holding productivity back?
所以呢，是什么阻挡生产力提升呢？
Productivity is held back by increasing excessive, unnecessary regulation.
生产力受到过度不必要的监管的阻碍，所以才没有提升，这是顾比的核心观点。
Now, many of you will be running your own businesses. You know just how much the compliance burden has increased in the last few years.
那如果说我们今天来参加的观众们有很多肯定是自己也是经营自己的企业的就一定知道在过去几年当中这种合规税务相关的负担有增加了多少。
We are doing so much work for the tax department collecting tax on their behalf.
我们为了交税，给澳大利亚政府交税就是付出了很多。
If you employ staff, there's a whole range of regulations around workplace relations and management.
如果大家有雇佣员工就知道啊，有很多的这些条框框，你要去遵循一些什么工作场所的安全啊、关系啊、管理啊。
And this has two impacts.
那么这个将会带来2个影响。
第一点 you have to take time off productive work to do all the compliance and regulation work.
那第一个影响呢，就是说你必须从这些员工当中有一个人抽出时间嘛，去做这些跟合规啊、监管啊、职场管理相关的事情。
第二点 you have to employ someone else to do all the compliance regulation work, and they are not productive. They don't add profit to your business. They reduce productivity.
那第二点的话呢，除了你现有的人抽出时间可能还不够啊，还得可能再请一个人去做相关的企业这些合规啊、监管啊这些东西。这些东西呢，你请这个人，他并不会对你的企业带来真正的业务的增加、利润的增加，也不对你的企业带来真正生产力嘛，是降低生产力的，变相来说。
So if we are going to have productivity increase as a precondition for wages increase, then we need to be tackling the productivity issue, and we don't do that by using interest rate rises.
所以说，如果我们要提高生产力那如果真的像 Philip Lowe 说的，生产力是工资增长的先决条件的话，那我们其实首先要解决的还是生产率的问题，就是刚刚聊到的，而不是说通过加息来做到这一点。
So the claim that wages are driving inflation is incorrect.
所以呢，顾比认为说工资的增长推动了澳大利亚的通胀这一说法是不准确的。
So that means the solutions that are being proposed by the Reserve Bank will not help solve the problem. And that's important when we are aiming to decide which stocks or companies are going to survive the coming downturn.
这说明一个什么现象？就是说，澳联储现在加息所做的这个事情，并没有办法解决目前的通胀问题那么这个呢，也会提醒我们，当我们决定投资哪些公司和股票，会在这样的一个环境下面去经营的更好，能够幸存下来给我们带来投资回报这一点是很重要的。
So you've got barriers to productivity, but you also have supply side issues.
所以说，除了在生产力方面、工作效率方面有问题不够，就是劳动力这个效率不够除此以外，我们也有就是供应端的问题。
So what do we mean by supply side?
那么供应端是什么意思呢？
It means that there is not enough material. There is not enough wood. There is not enough steel to be able to do the job.
那也就是说供应侧的问题，就是说现在市场上没有足够的原料，没有足够的，比如说没有足够的木材制造房子，也没有足够的钢材去给企业使用，就是缺东西。
Why does it take so long to build a house or to build an office block?
为什么盖一个房子或者盖个办公室要花那么长的时间？
Because the materials are not available.
就是因为比如说造房子、建筑相关的这些原料材料他们没有。
Here's an example.
现在图片上是一个很真实生动的案例。
Unfortunately, in a supermarket car park, someone backed into my wife's car.
在一个超市顾比太太的这个车被人家撞了一下，有个这个凹陷。
It took 8 months to get the replacement panel for the car.
大家知道从左边被撞了换到右边这个好的花了多长时间吗？8个月。
These were supply chain issues.
这就是一个很明确的供应不足的案例。
Not enough ships traveling between, in this case, Korea and Australia.
在这种情况下面，就是你在比如说澳大利亚跟韩国之间，如果他们有贸易的话，他们之间就是船不够嘛，就是说贸易不够嘛。
When the parts eventually landed in Melbourne, they took another 6 weeks to come to Darwin.
就算这个东西，比如说从韩国运到澳大利亚，对吧？然后到了澳大利亚以后，还要花6个星期才到达尔文。
These are supply chain and supply issues.
这就是供应链和供应的问题。
And that is what is driving inflation.
供应侧才是真正导致物价的问题。
You don't solve supply chain and supply issues by raising interest rates.
就是菲利普洛并没有通过提高供应链的这个效率问题来解决
So the important message here is that the Reserve Bank is using the wrong tools to try and solve the economic problem that we have.
也就是说，你加息你是解决不了供应链的问题的，对吧？这就说明什么？说明RBA 澳联储他们完全在用一个错误的经济工具解决目前我们澳大利亚经济的问题。
So instead of making it easier to do business, instead of making it easier to be more productive, the Reserve Bank wants to slow down the economy.
因此呢，就是澳联储现在所做的，并不是说想让大家经营生意去更容易，或者说让生产力提得更高而是把经济弄慢了。
The ABC News report summed it up best of all.
当地的这个 ABC 的新闻有做了一个很好的总结。
The Reserve Bank Governor Philip Lowe and his board have pushed up interest rates yet again because they want to damage the economy further.
这个 ABC 的这个新闻也很犀利他们就吐槽这个澳联储的 Philip Lowe 再次推高会议，再次推高利率是为了更伤害经济。
What madman wants to damage the economy further? It's unbelievable. 瞎子。
怎么会有这样的疯子去想要进一步损害经济呢？简直不可思议，对不对？
So it tells us we will see more interest rate rises.
所以这也告诉我们什么？我们未来还会看到更多的澳联储提高利率。
We will see several years of weak growth.
我们将会看到未来几年经济非常疲软的增长。
We may even see another recession.
我们甚至可以预见到有可能会有经济衰退。
Now, I'm sorry I can't be more optimistic when I look at the CPI and the Reserve Bank and the debt ceilings.
就是顾比想跟大家说，实在是不好意思，确实他对于目前这个美债以及澳联储加息的这个事情，他觉得就不是很乐观吧，还是比较悲观的。
This is a pessimistic outlook.
这是一个非常悲观的前景。
And we are already seeing the impact in the stock market.
而且呢，我们已经看到了这样悲观前景给股票市场带来的影响。
So the most important issues that we have to deal with now is how does this impact on our investment strategy?
所以现在很重要的一件事情就是说，这个对我们的投资策略会有怎样的影响呢？
Philip Lowe wants to damage the economy further.
澳联储央行行长想要继续去用加息来伤害经济。
He wants to reduce your savings. He wants to reduce the activity in the market.
他想要减少大家的储蓄，也想要减少市场上的相关经济活动。
But despite that, I'll tell you that the market is still the best place to be to overcome the problems that the Reserve Bank is creating.
但是呢，尽管如此，顾比还是给大家带来一个好消息啊，就是你在市场里面去交易的话，还是有办法可以找到机会，那么就于此而来呢，可以抵消加息带来的负面影响。
So that's a bright spot looking forward.
所以这里是一个非常值得期待的点啊。
Okay, so how does it impact our investment strategy?
OK， 下面就来到这个会怎么影响到我们的投资策略。
Before we even look at that, we need to understand the impact that this is having on the way that the market operates.
在我们考虑这个投资策略之前，我们要了解这个对市场运作方式的影响。
So what we are seeing is two important things.
所以我们现在呢要聊两个重要的点。
First, easy. The stock market is shrinking for the first time in 18 years. The stock market is smaller now than it has ever been before.
就是第一点的话，就是澳大利亚的这个股市啊，是18年以来第一次在萎缩现在整个股市的这个规模啊，交易量各方面都比以往任何时候要小。
The market is shrinking, which means that liquidity in the market is also becoming reduced.
那么因为整体市场的萎缩呢，那么流动性也是减少了。
Now, when we're reducing liquidity here, what we mean is the amount of money that is flowing into the market is reducing, it's falling.
减少流动性的意思呢，就是说流入整个股票市场的这个钱啊变少了。
People do not have spare money to put into the market, to invest or to trade.
那也是因为在这个加息环境下面呢，大家口袋里能够用来投资和放进股票市场的钱也是越来的越少了。
People who already have money in the market are taking it out. They are drawing down their savings out of markets.
而与此同时呢，很多之前把钱在股市里面有投资的人，可能这个时候呢会把他的钱从股市里拿出来
They are turning the tap off in terms of market liquidity.
就好像这个市场的流动性就像一个水龙头里流出来的水啊，现在就有一个手把这个水龙头给关上了，那么就水流不出来了，水流变小。
There is an additional factor that makes this pullback different to what it was in 2008 or at the turn of the century with the internet crash.
那么这种回调其实跟2008年的那个时候和那个包括互联网泡沫那个时候的这个情况是不一样的。
And that's what we might call the gluttony of superannuation funds.
这个可以说我们是就是养老基金的一次疯狂吞食。
Superannuation funds are now dominating the top 100 stocks.
养老基金正在主导现在澳大利亚股票前100的这个市值的股票。
The superannuation funds are taking more and more and more of the stock that's available to trade in BHP or CSL or CBA or NAB.
那么养老基金正在拿更多可以用来就是市场上可以大家经常会去交易股票，像必和必拓CSL 这些股票。
It means that there is less of BHP stock available for trading.
那么像这些大型的养老基金如果去买了这个票，比如说他买了 BHP 很大一部分股票，那就代表什么呢？ BHP 留在这市场上可供投资者去交易的股票就变少了。
The technical term is the free float is reduced.
那么金融术语的话，就是说这个市场上的自由流通股变少了。
For us as investors and traders, it means there is less opportunity to trade in the top 200 stocks or the top 300 stocks.
那么这个对我们投资者来说就显而易见啊，那我们去投资澳洲前200大市值的这些股票的机会就变少了。
That means that we have to look into different areas of the market to trade.
那么这个也代表呢，我们必须研究一下不同的市场，然后去做交易啊。
Now I just realized that there is a slide that I've missed in this particular presentation, so I'm going to bring it up again very quickly.
然后刚刚有一张这个 PPT 没展示出来，然后现在Gupi把这张 PPT 给大家调出来啊。
This is an advance warning for tomorrow's newsletter.
这是一个
Sorry, 对不起。
这是一个提前的对明天的一个新闻的一个预警啊。
I said earlier that the market remains the best place to be involved in to be able to defeat inflation and to get returns that are better than the rate of inflation.
之前就是讲过嘛，现在能够打败是通货膨胀加息这个问题的，就是说我们进入市场去交易。
Now we do a weekly newsletter where we look at trading techniques and methods that are suitable for the current market.
因为Gupi的话，他们每周都会做一些就是这种实时的通讯新闻来介绍当前市场的交易技巧和方法。
And we use case study trades in real time to illustrate and demonstrate those particular trading methods.
他们会用一些案例去做一些回测，比如说他们想到一个方法，然后用这个方法去交易，做一个回测。
And we run from financial year to financial year, from July to June.
那么Gupi用他们的这个交易策略呢，是在过去的一年，就是2022年7月到2023年的6月，这样去跑了一年。
So our return on capital, now realized profit on those case study trades since July 2022 is 52.2%.
那么Gupi运用的他们相应的这个组合策略来交易呢，获得的这个市场回报率是52.2%一年。
That's about 45% better than the rate of inflation.
这个基本上是比利息的上升要高了至少45%。
Now, we're not saying that you can get the same level of return, but the market will give you a better return than the rate of inflation.
这个并不是说大家也能一定获得这个相同水平的回报，但是想跟大家说的一点就是说加入这个市场，运用一个合适的交易策略，可以帮助大家去获得比目前通货膨胀更好的这样的一个收益的。
But you're never going to get that return by trading BHP or CSL or CompuShare or Aristocrat or Telstra.
但是的话，如果说你去交易澳洲这些大市值公司的股票，比如说像必和必拓、CSL Telstra 这些票的话那你不一定能获得这样的回报。
Now in 2022, we had a focus on, let's call it the middle part of the market. Stocks were outside of the top 300 and stocks that were trading maybe at 70 cents to $1 and higher.
可能在2022年呢可能在今年呢，就我们Gupi他们会更专注于买一些可能市值不在澳股前200前300这样一些票可能比如说他们会交易一些比如说70 cent 到1美到1澳刀的这样的一些股票。
But that is no longer as successful as it was, and as the Reserve Bank pushes the economy pushes it down, makes it bad, we have to look at different areas to trade in.
因为现在之前去交易这些大市值股票已经不像之前那么成功了，因为现在 RBA 一直在对吧破坏经济嘛，就是通过这个加息嘛，所以呢我们是必须从之前的思路转换过来去考虑交易一些不同的交易领域。
So this is how we are adjusting our trading tactics for the next quarter and potentially for the next half year.
那么这个就是下个季度，甚至是未来一年顾比会在这个交易策略上所做的改变，从大市值到中小市值。
We're not really looking for good growth in the top 200 stocks because the superannuation funds are choking the liquidity in those areas. We can't trade.
那么我们可能不会再从市值比较大的澳股前200的这个股票当中去寻找交易机会，因为呢现在一些大型的养老基金正在吞噬这些股票的流动性。
Bear in mind, please, the methods I'm going to talk about are not for everyone. They are just the methods that we are finding that are successful in the current market conditions.
这里再做一次风险提示，就是现在顾比聊的这个交易策略，并不是说一定适合每个人，大家要结合自己的实际情况这只是说现在顾比他们认为在目前的市场条件下可以取得胜率的一种方法。
Now we call this the Goiter's market line.
那么现在大家给展示的是一个这个 Goiter's 市场线这样的一个东西。
Now the Goiter's line is actually a line drawn by a surveyor in South Australia, and it marked where there was 10 inches of rainfall.
那么这个呢是当时有南澳的一个测量员画的跟降雨相关的这样的一个图表。
And the 10-inch line was a remarkable division between countryside that was suitable for growing wheat and grain and countryside that was not suitable for wheat and grain.
那么这个是降雨图这个降雨图呢10这个地方是一个关键位置，10呢是10英寸降雨的意思那么以10英寸线为分割线那么一部分呢是适合种植小麦和谷物的，另外一部分呢就是不适合种植小麦和谷物之间的明显区分划分。
In other words, it was a point of rapid change.
换句话说的话，就是说10这个地方是一个快速改变的地方。
And we see the same thing in the market.
那么市场呢，其实就跟现在这个降雨图的线很像。
Stocks that trade under 10 cents move in 0.1 of an increment.
那么交易价格低于0.1美元的股票就在增量的第10.1个点。
So they go from 9.7 to 9.8 to 9.9 cents.
那么这些票呢，就是从9.7到9.8，再到9.9美分。
But once they get to 10 cents, the minimum trading size increases to half a cent.
但是当它一旦达到了这个10分这个时候最小的交易规模就会开始以5%来开始变化。
So they go from 10 cents to 10.5 to 11, 11.5, 12, etc.
所以大家可以看到，在这个10的左边呢，这是以0.1为一个计价的这个区间来增长的，但是过了10以后，就是以10.5、11、11.5，以一个0.5的这个增长量在变化的。
So after 10 cents, each new price move moves a larger percentage.
所以说在过了10分这个10这个关键的位置以后呢，它就会以一个更大的百分比率去向上移动。
So one of the strategies we use in an economy that is slowing down and in a market that has no liquidity is to trade this bottom end of the market.
所以说我们现在在这个经济放缓而且流动性也缺乏的市场当中呢，我们使用的策略之一就是交易这个偏市值底部的这个市场。
So what we look for is these penny stocks that are trading at around 9 to 10 cents.
所以说我们现在主要看的呢，就是一些低价股，差不多是9到10分。
And we're looking for stocks that are beginning to show a rally, a move from 9 cents towards 10 cents.
我们要找的这些票呢，就是刚刚好在这个9.9这个位置啊，它要越过10这个地方的这样一些股票，因为它后面的增量会开始迅速上升。
So this is a fast rally or an established uptrend that has developed.
所以呢，如果过了10啊，那他们就会有一个快速的反弹，而且形成一个非常确定的上升趋势。
Because if they can break through 10 cents, then their next price rise is 10.5 cents.
就像刚刚聊到的，就是只要这个票啊，它介于这个10的左边，但是它一旦到了这个10分，越过了这条线，那么他们就会开始上升到比如10.5、11、11.5更大的量增长。
Because each step is larger, they can move quickly from 10, 10.5, 11, 11.5, 12.
那么因为每一个区间变化的这个0.5的量比之前的这个0.1是更大了，所以说呢，这个上升的趋势就会更快、更明显。
Think about it.
大家可以想一下。
That's a 20% return.
这将会带来20%左右的回报哦。
And when the breakout develops, it often moves very quickly. So that return is delivered sometimes within just 2 or 3 days.
一旦越过了10这条线的话，这个突破一旦达成，这个上升趋势可能会发展的非常快，2到3天内就会达成。
Of course, there's no guarantee that the stock that's moving from 9.7 towards 10 will actually reach 10 and break out. Sometimes they reach 10 and then they pull back.
当然了，这也不是说100%有时候有一些票它从9.7开始，对吧？那么有可能它会不一定能到达10，有时候到达9.8、9.9，这个当中会有个过程。
So you need to use a very tight stop in this type of trading.
所以说如果做这种交易的话呢，大家也需要一个非常明确的这个止损。
And also, you need to recognize that in this type of trading, these are relatively small trades.
另外的话，大家还要意识到，就是说这种类型的交易，它一般都是一些量比较小的这样的一个交易。
You can spend $10,000 or $20,000 or $30,000, but you cannot spend $50,000 or $60,000 or $70,000 on the trade because the liquidity is not large enough.
因为这些票就很小嘛，那你肯定就是用你钱的一小部分去做这样的一个交易，因为流动性不够大嘛，大概就是花1万、2万、3万，对吧？你已经可以买到这些票的很多的这个很多了，那不可能说花比如说5万、6万、7万这样子，因为流动性也不够嘛。
Now, this is only one strategy that we are applying in the current market, which is shrinking.
那么这个就是我们现在在流动性萎缩的这样一个市场上所采取的这样的一个策略。
We are still investing and trading in these types of stocks here, the larger stocks, the ones the superannuation funds are involved in.
当然了，我们现在也还是继续在像之前一样交易这些大市值的股票，也是还有在交易的这些就是前面提到的养老基金正在掌握主导权的这样的一些大市值的公司。
But the return, mama hoo hoo.
但是可能这些大市值的股票就不比定期的观测来说，好像不是说很好。
马马虎虎。So several of these trades will help boost our portfolio returns so we can be in a situation where our capital is outperforming the rate of inflation.
那么在我们的投资组合当中，如果加入一些刚刚顾比介绍到的交易一些比较小的这些票来博取一些收益的话呢，也可以帮助我们整体的资产组合抵御通货膨胀。
Now some people will say, "Oh, this is a little dangerous. I will only use money I can afford to lose."
有的人肯定也会觉得这种交易它的这个风险比较大，因为小市值的股票嘛，可能有的人会说，我只能交易一些我能承受，我会全部输掉的这些钱，我行吧，那我拿来交易一点点。
I disagree.
但是顾比呢不这么认为。
I do not like to lose money in the market. These trades are just as important as any other trade that I take.
大家不要觉得这些小市值的股票你可能不会花总金额很大去买你就觉得不在意输完就输完吧。顾比说了，他不喜欢在市场上赔钱，这即便是交易小市值股票，也是跟做其他的交易一样，都是一样的重要的。
And just to give you two examples of recent trades using this Goida market line, two personal trades.
那么现在呢，给大家两个使用这个方式的一个交易，两个例子。
The first was in TVN, Tivan Resources.
那么第一个票呢是Tivan Resources 这个票。
And the second was in TBN, which is Tanambrini Resources.
那么第二个呢也是一个Tanambrini Resources 这个票前面一个代码是 TBN， 第二个代码是 TBN。
And they returned between 20 and 30% over 4 to 5 days.
那么这两个票呢都在4到5天里面拿到了20%到30%之间的收益。
And we have to use this because the market is being dominated by high frequency trading and exchange traded fund trading.
我们必须使用这种交易策略，是因为现在市场正被一些量大的交易、高频的交易和交易所机构所主导。
There are two consequences that come from this.
有两个后果。
First, there is also good trading opportunities in the ETFs. So if you find a hot sector, then it is better to trade it through the ETF than to try to find an individual stock in that sector.
那么这里呢，第一个就是说顾比也给大家带来一个还有比较好交易机会的板块，就是 ETF。如果说呢，大家发现有一个热门的行业我们可以选择投资这个行业的 ETF， 而不是说在这个行业里面一定要去找一个个股来进行投资。
But remember, the ETF will only perform as well as the index that it is representing. It will not outperform.
但是大家也要记住ETF 呢是一种被动投资，它是一种追踪指数的这样的一个产品。所以说呢，如果指数表现的好，它会跟指数表现的一样好，而并不是跑赢大盘。
But even still, many of those ETFs will give you a better return than the rate of inflation.
那么当然了，其实很多的这个 ETF 也还是能给大家带来抵御通胀的这样的一个投资机会的。
But the most important change from ETF and HFT trading is the way that it impacts the way that orders are executed when you buy and sell.
那么 ETF 呢以及高频交易其实还有一个影响，就是它改变了现在市场就是买卖执行单子的执行订单的这样的一些方法。
When the market is strong, the best time to buy is in the morning because the trend is most likely to continue for the rest of the day.
当市场很强劲的时候啊，买入的最佳机会呢是在早上因为早上买入的话，这个趋势是最有可能持续一整天的。
But in this market condition, where the Reserve Bank is trying to destroy the economy, the best time to enter in the market is at the end of the trading day.
但是在现在的市场条件下面啊，就是跟之前寻常的不一样，因为 RBA 它是要摧毁这个经济嘛。那么进入市场最佳的交易时间呢，是在这个交易日结束的时候。
It's exactly the same as trading Shanghai market.
那么去在上证指数进行交易也是一样的。
为什么？ Because of course in Shanghai market there is no intraday trading. You cannot buy this morning and sell this afternoon.
因为大家都知道，在中国交易股票的话，你是不可以今天早上下午卖的啊，这个跟澳洲的股票不一样。
So in Shanghai, it is better to buy in the last half hour of trading because if the trade is not successful, you can quickly get out in the morning on the next day.
所以说呢，在中国交易市场上证指数的话，你最好是在收盘前的最后半个小时买入，因为这样子的话，如果这个交易不成功，因为是 T+1嘛，那你就可以在第二天早上快速的卖出。
Of course, in Australia, if I buy in the morning, I can close the trade at any time during the day, on the same day.
当然，在澳洲的股票这里可是 T+0的市场了。如果说你在早上买进去，你觉得这个票它不行，那我们马上就可以卖出。
But in the current market condition, what we find is that there is a low level of activity in the morning and trading activity increases in the afternoon, particularly in the last half hour of trading.
那么现在在市场上观测到的一件事情啊，就澳洲的市场就是早上的这个交易水平是很低的，量很少但是呢，随着到下午这个交易量就开始增加，尤其是在交易前的最后收盘前半个小时。
So there is an unusually high level of trading that takes place at what's called the match trading period around 4 o'clock to about 10 minutes past 4.
所以说呢，这个异常高的水平的交易量一般是发生在4点以及4点过后的大概10分钟。
So we adjust our trading method and we adjust the way that we enter and exit the market.
所以说的话，我们就要训练自己这个交易的这个方法我们进入和退出市场的这个方法都需要有一个系统性的训练。
Generally, in this market condition, it's best to trade into those stocks that are defensive, such as food, things that people have to have.
所以说一般来说，在现在这个市场环境下面呢，最好就是交易一些有防御性的股票，比如说像就食品，就是必选消费。
And people are paring back, are moving back their investments to the must-have stocks that deal in commodities, in food, for instance, that people have no choice. 没办法，
因为现在
they have to eat.
没办法，因为现在大家没有办法，因为大家加息嘛，口袋里的钱变少了，那你必须只能说把钱放到你必须要买的商品食品上面，这个是没有选择的。
When we are looking at opportunities at the lower end of the market, the penny stocks, then we look at those hot areas like lithium and these sorts of metals.
那么当我们在其他的这个市场找投资机会的话，一些小的市值的股票，那可能我们就可以看一些比较热门的板块，比如说像锂还有金属。
But there is one important feature we need to consider when we are trading in areas with these strategic metals.
但是的话有一点很重要，就是说在 有一点在如果交易金属相关的这些领域当中的话，我们需要考虑。
And that is the increased potential for state price control.
那么这个呢，就是说，国家就是或者这个州这个区啊，会不会对这个金属的价格有一些价格的潜在控制力？
We are already seeing the situation where the government is trying to set the price for gas and for electricity.
就因为有时候的话，像我们会看到澳大利亚政府它会给天然气以及电力去定一个指导价，那相当于这个价格的话，它就有一个上限一样的意思。
So although there will be some good stocks here, we think that this sector of the market needs more caution, short-term trading.
所以说这个板块呢，就是小市值的锂的金属的这些板块啊，虽然会有一些不错的股票但是呢，这个板块大家要当心，就是火中取栗啊，可能就是市场如果说有一个最高定价，尤其是政府它会有一个相关的这个定价的话，那大家一定要更谨慎的去做短线的交易。
Because if the government imposes price controls on the commodities, on lithium, etc., then the economic basis for this industry is constricted.
就是如果说一旦相关的政府以及区域对这个商品啊对金属啊商品啊锂这些有价格的一个实控，把它控制住了的话，那么这些这个行业支撑它的这个基础逻辑，它就会有受到限制嘛，增长就会受到限制。
And of course, in a slowing economy, we look to avoid those stocks that are discretionary purchases.
那么当然呢，在经济放缓的情况下面，与必选消费相对立面的就是我们也可能需要去避免买一些可选消费。
I can live without a new handbag.
如果没有这个新的 LV 包包，也是可以活下去的啊。
I can live without a new pair of shoes.
不买一双新鞋也是可以活下去的，对吧？
So these are discretionary expenditure, things that you do not have to buy.
所以这些呢，就是可选消费的例子，就是说你不是说一定没了它就活不下去的这些东西。
So companies that are involved in that area are companies we are moving away from as the economy shrinks.
那么所以说像这些公司啊，就是可选消费这些类似的板块，就是我们可能在这个市场缩量、经济衰退的这个情况下面要避免的这样的一些公司。
Now we said we'd briefly look at the impact of the G7, the meeting in Hiroshima.
那么现在呢，我们会看一下在广岛G7峰会的对澳股带来的一些影响。
So the first impact is that the G7 meeting was really about continuing the attack on the Chinese economy.
就是这个G7啊，他们还是继续对中国进行一些施压吧。
And this is through the use of trade sanctions, monetary controls, making trade, international trade from China more difficult.
那么这个呢，也使得中国的这个就是会有贸易制裁啦，还有一些货币管理啦，那么让中国的这个贸易更加困难。
We don't think that this is going to have a big impact on China's ability to trade in many other places.
但是呢，顾比也认为这个其实不会对中国在其他地方除了机器以外的这些其他国家的贸易交往能力产生特别大的影响。
What we will see is an increased use of the yuan for international trade settlement.
我们可能看到的呢是越来越多的地方可能会使用人民币去作为结算。
But one of the important factors is that by cutting China out of the supply chains, then we increase the inflationary effect in our market.
那么有一点很重要就是说把中国排除在这些G7的这些国家的这个供应链当中，其实会变相的造成就是要去进口 更贵的东西，其实这个也是会造成通胀的。
And so, for example, we can buy a laptop that was made in China, let's say for $300.
就是比如说，本来我们可以买一个中国制造的笔记本电脑，就300刀吧。
But if we are forced to buy a laptop made in America, then the same laptop is more expensive for $500.
如果说我们对中国贸易制裁，那我们现在买不了中国制造的电脑啦，只能买一个美国制造的电脑，对不对？那跟300元相比，我们可能要花500刀。
One of the most significant impacts on the global economy from China was deflation.
另外呢，中国对全球经济最重大的影响呢，就是通货紧缩。
So when we reduce our trade with China, what we do is we replace cheaper items with more expensive items. We drive further inflation, and of course that leads to further rises in interest rates.
如果说减少跟中国的贸易呢，就会造成我们不进口更便宜的东西，反而进口更贵的，然后进口更贵的呢，就输入性的通货膨胀，进一步的推高物价，然后进一步的加息。
But perhaps the most important conclusion from the G7 meeting was the way it was trying to divide the world into a Western sphere and the rest of the world.
那么这可能就是 G7 峰会最重要的一个结论，就是说其实 G7 这个小团体他们也是在试图分裂这个世界嘛，就是分成西方领域和其他地方。
Now the most important impact of that is the use of United States sanctions to prevent or reduce trade with China.
那么比较重要的影响就是美国将运用制裁嘛，来减少与中国的这个经济贸易往来。
And this is particularly in terms of what we call secondary boycotts.
这个尤其是我们说的这个二次抵制。
So what it means, for instance, what it means, for instance, is I cannot sell a product to China that uses software that comes from the United States.
比如说这意味着我们不能向中国销售使用软件的来自美国的这种产品。
So the United Arab Emirates wants to send some equipment into space using the Chinese rockets.
所以说这个阿拉伯那边的酋长就希望使用中国的火箭将一些设备送入太空。
But some of that equipment that the United Arab Emirates wants to send uses American components and software. So the Americans are threatening the United Arab Emirates and says, you cannot do this.
但是阿拉伯的那边呢，他们希望比如说有一些就是发出去的这些设备有一些可能是跟美国就美国的软件这些，那美国人就警告阿拉伯了，说不行，你不能发。
Now we don't know yet, but there will be companies and developments in Australia that will be affected in the same way.
现在呢，这种刚刚说的这个例子的这些事情还会不会发生也不知道但是说肯定的是澳大利亚也有一些公司将会以同样的这种类似的方式制裁受到影响。
It will be where the Americans will put pressure on the Australian government to stop a business or a company dealing with China.
因为其实大家都知道澳洲的经济其实也是比较依赖中国的这经济包括经贸嘛，但是的话美国呢后期肯定也会向澳大利亚施压，要求停止他们跟中国打交道。
And that's a great risk that has come out of the G7.
那么这个呢其实也是一个很大的投资方面的风险。
So having painted a bit of a bleak picture, I was going to look at, I was going to look at oil and the S&P index, the XJO, dollar, and gold. Can you please, a bit difficult, please use the messaging. Please let me know if you would like to look at those or if you would like to go to questions.
OK， 那么后面呢，后面那个顾比呢会给大家看一下，比如说原油，还有标普500指数还有这个澳元美元指数和黄金的这个图。如果问一下大家是想要看一下这些技术分析，还是想要直接来问问题，大家可以现在在这个留言区里面去一下。
Send your questions, write your questions into Cecilia and she will tell me. But while we're waiting for the first questions, then I just need to shift a couple of moves around. Let's have a look at what we've got. Perhaps we'll start off with the ASX 200. So what we have at the moment is a move below this long-term support level. We are still not able to break above this downtrend line. That tells us that as this downtrend pressure continues, that our next support level is sitting at 6,900. So low is succeeding in pushing the economy down and pushing the market down. We are bearish on the XJO, which means we need to look for stocks and trading opportunities that are moving either counter trend on the long side, or we are taking short positions for stocks that are also trapped in a downtrend. Cecilia, do you have any questions? Oh, sorry. Funny.
Yes, I will translate the question first. Yeah. 所以刚刚顾比就是说呢，给大家分享了一个这个澳股这个 XJO 就200指数嘛，其实呢就是说整体来说就是说还是看的是比较熊的就是说觉得这个这个澳股200指数走的不太好。首先呢，我们现在所处的点位呢是低于一个长期的这个支撑位的这个横的这个最长的这个线下面这个714.88，我们在没有走出这个长期的一个这个位置。那么并且呢，我们也现在好像在一个下行的通道里面，然后呢我们也没有办法现在好像有信号去突破这条这个下降的斜的这个趋势线那么这个就告诉我们呢，随着这个下降的趋势线的压力持续的话，我们的如果再往下的话，下一个支撑位置可能是更低了，就在这个6900这个当中，就是有3根横的线，最下面一根就是6900的这个位置所以说呢就是说顾比是看跌的，因为呢他觉得就是加息这个问题是推动了经济的下跌，也促进了这个股票市场的这个下跌。那么所以呢在交易澳股200指数上的话呢我们就可以去适当的建立空头头寸那么这也是如果大家做 CFD 的话，那就是可以看涨也可以做空是这样子Okay, Daryl, I will see if there is any questions.
Okay, questions?
Yeah. We got clients asking about how long will the Australia recession be? Half year or over a year? What do you think about it?
It is difficult to forecast how many months the recession may last. What we do know is that there is strong downwards pressure, certainly for the next several months.
很难预测经济衰退会持续多少个月，但是我们知道是未来几个月肯定会存在非常强大的下行压力的。Okay, Daryl.
So we must be careful, very careful about the stocks that we select and the way that we trade them.
所以呢，我们一定要很小心选股以及交易这些股票，因为后面会有一个经济衰退。
好啊。
Okay. Actually, I saw many clients asking. They are very interested about the topic you are going to talk, gold and oil. Please talk about it.
Okay, let's have a look at oil. Remember, oil is responsible for inflation. 是不是？
大家不要忘了油作为重要的商品之一，它是跟通货膨胀很相关的
是不是？不是。Oil is trading in a sideways trading band between 62 and 82.
那么目前油呢是在62跟82之间进行一个横盘整理。
The downtrend has ended, but there is no new uptrend.
就是之前油一直是在62到82的这个区间嘛，然后现在的话下行的趋势油是已经结束了，但是呢还没有看到有新的上升趋势。
This is a weekly chart. Oil trades in trading bands that are around $10 wide.
那么这个每周的这个是周的这个油的这个线可以看到的话，它差不多的这个区间是在10美元的这个区间里面，就是10的这样的一个宽度的区间里。
对不起，20 points wide, $20 wide.
不好意思，是20，就从60到80左右吧，就20美元的这样一个区间，有20美元的幅度。
So we take the width of the trading band, projected downwards, it gives us a downside target around $42.
如果再往下看下一个这个区间的话，就吓人了42美元。
If oil breaks above resistance, the upside target is around $102.
不过往上看的话，可能是100甚至是120以上的这个最高的这个区间。
But it is most likely that oil will continue to trade sideways between 62 and 82.
就是说，虽然如果突破这个下行上行的阻力位上可以上到120、100，下可以下到42，但是呢，库比认为大概率还是在62到82这个20美元的这个区间里面去运行横盘整理。
So the key thing to remember is that oil is not a contributor to inflation in the Australian environment.
好的，那么请大家记住在澳大利亚的这个物价的问题、通货膨胀的问题里面石油并不是一个主要原因。
So will gold go up if the economy is bad?
OK， 接下来就是大家最关心的黄金。如果说经济不好，黄金作为避险资产是否会上涨呢？
The debt crisis, the debt ceiling crisis, pushed the price of gold up to 2,150 or thereabouts.
前面的这些跟经济衰退的这些担忧是把金价一度推高到2150左右。
There is an uptrend that we can define with a simple trend line through here, and that uptrend line is currently being tested.
那么我们可以非常简单的从这张图上，也是一个周线图，黄金周线图可以有一个上行趋势的一条线，我们可以很简单的把它画出来。
Now, we can set the upside target for gold by measuring the width of the trading band, and this is a very long-term trading band, and projecting that upwards.
我们可以通过测量交易区间的宽度来设定黄金的这个上行目标，而且现在就是黄金之前所在的那个区间它其实是之前已经运行了很长时间的这样的一个区间。
But because the debt ceiling crisis has been resolved, Americans no longer worry about debt.
但是呢，就是因为之前债务危机一下子被解决以后大家就不是很担心这个债务的危机了，那么避险情绪也随之下降。
So there was less reason to buy and hold gold.
所以说去买入和持有黄金的这个动力就不足。
We anticipate that gold will come back and trade within this trading band.
那么库比认为呢，黄金应该会最终回归到图片上的这个 A、B 之间的这个交易的这个区间。
But the weakness in the American political system and the concern about their lack of worry about debt will see continued buying of gold and a weak potential to break out above 2,100.
但是说美国，比如说经济衰退啊，还有美国这个债务担忧也凸显出美国有一些政治上的可能弱点吧。那么如果说这些恐慌情绪重回啊，那么黄金可能会有持续的买盘以及突破2100点。
So most of the trading activity will be between the trading bands with an occasional breakout developing.
所以总结的话呢，就是布比目前认为，就是黄金差不多就在图片上的 A、B 之间的这个区间运行吧，差不多是我感觉是1700到这个2000出头一点的这个位置去运行，但是呢也会有可能有时候有一点点潜力去上行突破到2000以上2100点这样。
But when you look at opportunities in the market, we think there are better opportunities that deliver better returns for capital than for trading gold.
但是就是布比想跟大家说，虽然黄金真的是非常受欢迎的交易品种，但是大家也可以看看其他的交易品种，因为市场上也有很多机会，目前可能比黄金带来更高的回报。
You see, the Americans don't believe there is any problem.
你看啊，美国人他们不觉得自己有问题，为什么呢？我们来看纳斯达克指数。
Look at this Nasdaq chart.
大家来看纳斯达克指数的这个图表啊，也是个周线图。
Where is the concern about the debt ceiling? Nowhere.
纳斯达克指数就是一直在飙升啊，没有任何说因为受到这个美债这个谈判危机的这个影响。
But what's important is if you compare that with S&P, the breakout on the S&P is not as developed as the breakout on the Nasdaq.
但是很有意思是，大家如果把这个标普指数进行对比的话，就会发现标普的这个突破并不是说很明显，就不一样嘛，跟纳斯达克比起来就完全不一样了。
That tells us that the S&P is lagging behind the Nasdaq.
这个标普500指数的这个较弱的突破，也代表呢，它现在是比纳斯达克指数要就是落后了。
And this is what we call a leaders and laggards strategy.
这个就是我们说的有一种策略，就是一个是先行的一些就是涨得多的，还有一些就是涨得少的落后者和领导者这样的一个策略。
And that strategy says that you buy the S&P, but you watch the Nasdaq. You watch the leader.
对，这个策略呢，就是说我们看纳斯达克作为先行指标，那么这个标普500呢作为后行指标，也就是说我们在去做标普500的时候，可以以纳斯达克它是一个先行指标嘛，作为一个参考。
So when the leader begins to turn down, that gives you the signal to get out of the S&P.
如果说大家交易，比如说标普500指数然后就看纳斯达克它一直涨嘛，那现在标普500也突破了，对吧？它也在涨。那哪天纳斯达克纳指如果回头了，它跌了，这个就是告诉你，标普指数这个后面肯定也会跌。
But in general, the American market does not believe that there is any problem with debt, and they believe that the world will continue to lend them money so they can continue with their wasteful lifestyle.
但是整体看下来就是看美国的这个2个指数不管怎么说都是还走得不错，就是说明呢，美国人他们不觉得自己市场有问题，他们也对美债没有这个担忧，他们觉得市场确实会借钱给我们的。
But the debt ceiling discussion shows that the world is less confident that that is a sustainable approach to economic management.
但是这次关于这个美债上限的谈判问题其实看到市场有很大的波动的话，包括黄金各方面，就代表其实这个市场已经不像之前一样对美国那么有信心了。
Another question, perhaps the last question.
Yeah, the last question. So how about the interest rate hike in Australia, how many times they are led to the end of the interest hike?
I think we are likely to see at least another one. My guess, and it is only a guess, is we are likely to see another 2 or 3 interest rate moves because the Reserve Bank wants to destroy the Australian economy. That's what they've said.
好的，那么刚刚呢，我也是问了，我们也是有观众问了顾比一个问题，就是大家最关心的，澳洲还会不会加息？那么顾比呢，的答案跟我们之前分析的其实也一样啊，就是认为会至少有一个，而且很有可能还会有另外2到3次的因为呢前面说了Philip Lowe 他就是想这样做，他就是要去破坏这个经济。
They want to weaken economic growth.
他们就是想要削弱这个经济，减少经济活动来抵御通胀。
So that means that if we are going to survive, and if we are going to not just survive but make money in an economy that is contracting, we must use the right strategy.
所以呢，这个就代表未来还会有加息。如果说我们要生存的话，不仅仅说我们是要去赚钱，我们在这个经济萎缩当中呢，还要使用正确的投资策略，积极的加入到我们的这个交易市场，才可以去抵御通胀。
And that strategy is one of the 36 strategies.
那么这个策略呢，就是36计，有哪些计呢？
Funko, where'd you? Oops, that's the wrong screen. Let me come back to that again.
就是反客为主。
对。Remember, every stock in your portfolio is a guest. Don't let losing stocks take over your portfolio.
那么大家要记住自己这个整体的资产配置组合里面的每一位他们就像一个客人，不要让比如说有个产品它跌得很多，就让它反客为主，把你整个这个资产的这个配置都吞噬掉了。
反客为主。Don't let losing stocks destroy your profits.
不要让跌幅特别大的某一个投资品种把你所有的利润都侵蚀。
And it's going to be more difficult to select winning stocks.
而且呢，这个市场未来还会就是去选一些能够胜率高的股票，其实是越来越难。
And that's simply because the market condition is going to become more difficult.
难以选择股票，就是因为这个市场环境也是不是很乐观
Now every week we produce a weekly newsletter and we discuss and investigate trading strategies and methods that are suitable for the current market condition.
那么顾比呢也是在这个gomarketssyd.com 这个网站，他们会分享他们自己就是动态调整的一些交易策略以及一些新闻。
It's not about stock tipping.
并不是说告诉你早高消息买哪个票
But we discuss the techniques and the methods, show you how they work with real-time examples.
只是说让大家掌握就是技术分析的这个策略，那么然后呢运用到自己的这个交易品种上。
And some of the strategies I talked about tonight are in stocks and forex trading that is written by myself and Karen Wong.
那么今天呢是顾比和他的同事呢分享的就是顾比和他的同事一起撰写的一些股票和外汇的基础面。
谢谢大家。
好的，谢谢大家。好 ，Thank you Daryl。
你的翻译非常好，谢谢。
谢谢，你的中文也很好。You can speak very good Mandarin。好的，谢谢，那也谢谢大家。那我们今天的webinar 就到此结束。OK， 好 ，That's the end of the webinar. Thank you everyone. Thank you, Gopi.